before Angus Taylor starts his speech. I'm going to share the screen with our Sky News mates. My dog's going nuts. All right, and we want to listen. Stop it. He's gone fucking nuts. I might have to let him OUT soon. Hopefully he'll settle down. What we're going to be doing is Angus Taylor's giving his budget reply speech. This is probably the most important speech, just not of Angus Taylor's career, but probably in the history of the Liberal Party and the LNP coalition. Because if he doesn't nail it tonight, as opposed to that stupid bloody budget they've just given this week, ALP is just dead. It's gone. He has to get on the front foot in a big way. So it will be very interesting to see how far he goes in this reply. And it's far more than just the negative gearing or the capital gains tax. He's got to give a broad speech across a whole litany of policy areas to get them back in the picture. And it's not impossible. I've been watching Kemi Badenoch over in the UK. The Conservatives were in a very similar position to what the LNP is now. And she's doing a magnificent job in getting them back into the battleground of politics. People are paying attention. They're talking about her. If you haven't seen her before in action, you really need to get to watch her. She would make an outstanding Prime Minister in England, but you probably won't get there because the Conservative Party is weighing her down. Maybe not the next election. Maybe, who knows, the one after. But I would rate her far ahead of any other politician in England, and certainly ahead of all the politicians here in Australia. So if you haven't seen her in action, get on your news feed. She's there all the time, and have a look. Tonight we're going to get a look. Here we go. We're going to go straight into Andrew Bolt. And we'll watch. And we'll watch it. And then once they're finished, or even during it, we'll have some commentary on what they're doing. And apparently just found out Pauline Hanson is giving her own speech, as she should. She is leading in the polls, her and One Nation. So they should be giving a budget reply. They won't be able to put a speech. They won't be able to do it in the parliament because technically they're not the opposition because they don't have enough seats. But by all the polls, they are. The budget has absolutely backfired on Labor. So when One Nation is now leading in the polls, first time that's ever happened since World War II, that a party other than Labor or Liberal have led the polls. So unbelievable. So without any further ado, let's get into the share screen with Andrew Bolt. Oh, I'll continue on. Sorry, guys. Just beautiful. And here we go.
That the other most likely challengers, more popular in the party, are even more to the left of Keir Starmer. People like Andy Burnham, Mayor of Manchester, even though he doesn't actually have a seat yet in Parliament, and Angela Rayner, who's just been cleared of tax cheating, a real socialist. And then there's former leader Ed Miliband, State Secretary for Energy Security, who's such a global warming extremist that can you believe he's just banned Britain from opening any more oil and gas fields in the North Sea. Joining me from London is GB News super host Patrick Christys. Patrick, great to see you again. What's happening and why?
Oh my gosh, roll up, roll up. There's a trapeze artist, a lion tamer. Someone's about to be fired out of a cannon. Welcome to the Labour Party circus, Andrew. There are 4 separate leadership challenges to our Prime Minister today. The Health Secretary, he's set to resign today. That former Deputy Leader sacked over a tax issue, now cleared over a tax issue. The Red Queen, Angela Rayner, she's pulled herself out of an Ibiza nightclub and she's ready to enter number 10 Downing Street. Ed Miliband, that net zero zealot, hasn't bothered to put solar panels on his own homes, had to be forced into buying an electric car, has racked up more air miles than you.
And we'll keep chatting. Poms are in an interesting position at the moment. Keir Starmer, just talking about it, Kemi Badenoch, she absolutely tore Keir Starmer a new arsehole the other day in their parliament. And every front bencher, just about everyone in the Labor Party. I mean, you got to watch her. Seriously, it's worth the entertainment. Apparently, she got off to a slow start as opposition leader. God, I haven't seen her except when she was early on in the job, but I've seen her recently. She is so impressive. if the Liberals could get someone like her in charge, that'd be half a chance. So, and Labor's in real trouble with her because, one, she's a female, and two, she's black. She was raised in Nigeria. So, two of their typical things, they can't call her a bigot, they can't call her a racist, and they can't call her anti-female. So there's 3 boxes that have been crossed off straight away for Labor to attack her. So, Jacinta Price is probably the closest thing we've got in Australia. But even Jacinta doesn't match her standards. So it's going to be interesting tonight. It really is going to be interesting. If you've got any questions, send them through. I'll try and answer them. Once Angus Taylor starts, we'll let him pretty much speak. Same with Pauline once she gets on. And then we'll have a chat later on. If you want to get in on the chat, send a DM through to me on my Twitter account, which is @theconservative19. I'll get that up for you here in a minute. And feel free to jump on and join the conversation if that's what you want to do. So, but it's certainly going to be an interesting night tonight. I didn't intentionally I usually do the podcast on a Tuesday night, so I didn't intentionally put it here on Thursday. More good luck than good management. And I'll give you my Conservative tag. So you can go to this account if you don't already have it. Most of you probably do. And you can DM me and I'll send you the invite if you want to get on and join me for a conversation. Otherwise, it'll just be me blabbing on once Angus Taylor's finished, which will be fine. But it's a bit more fun when we got 1 or 2 of us. So I'll get you back to Andrew Bolt now. Let's see what Patrick Christie is. A very good reporter. I like him. Let's see what they've got to say about UK politics.
Would have to resign from cabinet. The whole government would come crashing down. It is absolutely astonishing. And what they're doing right now is they're celebrating, Andrew. They are literally this morning celebrating 0.6% economic growth, saying that, it's an amazing thing. Look at how we're doing compared to France. So it's like 2 bald men fighting over a comb, this. I think France has got economic growth of about 0.4%. We are stagnant. It needs something bold, brave, big. We're not really getting that at the moment. And we had those farcical scenes yesterday of the King, our dear King, who's recovering from cancer, being dragged into the House of Lords, into the House of Parliament, to deliver the King's speech, which is supposed to be the Prime Minister's legislative agenda for the year ahead. The Prime Minister won't be in power in a couple of days' time, probably. It's a complete farce, this whole thing that's going on.
Patrick, we're getting told that, at least we're not as bad as Britain and France. So you can imagine how it is several people fighting, bald people fighting over that comb. Patrick Christie, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Now, in a few seconds, we're going to cross to Angus Taylor, the opposition leader, giving his official reply to Tuesday's budget. And I can't remember the last time a budget reply was so significant. I mean, Taylor's future, even the Liberals' future, they hang on this. Will we now learn what the Liberals stand for? Are they going to be a one nation light and chase those lost voters, or will the Liberals go back to their basics: freedom, small government, low taxes and national pride? But really, it's not just the future of the Liberals we're talking about, is it? It's the future of this country that's getting poorer, that's squandering our luck, that's becoming so divided. I tell you, this is Taylor's moment to prove his critics like me, prove them wrong, and show that he is the man with the plan to save his country. I don't know, can he do it? Well, it's going to be up to him to prove us. Here we are, and about to go live now to Canberra, where Angus Taylor will his budget reply. The nation hangs on his every word. Let us hear what he has to say. No, we're still not there. This is not a good start. Not a good start. Angus Taylor can't get there in time. Isn't ready in time. I hope he's working on his brilliant lines. But here comes the speaker, Milton Dick now, the guy who today ruled controversially that you couldn't call the Albanese government liars when they have been liars. Isn't that amazing, astonishing? Talk about a protection racket. Well, let us see that if Angus Taylor can punch you through it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To Australians watching, thank you for your time. Tonight, I want to tell you about my vision for a fairer, freer and better Australia for all. An Australia where life is affordable. An Australia where we have cheap and abundant energy. An Australia where industries thrive and businesses boom. An Australia where we innovate, make and build things of ambition and farm, mine and drill with determination. Yeah. An Australia where a single income earner on an ordinary wage has enough for a home deposit and to pay off a mortgage steadily over time. An Australia where a mum or dad can afford to take time away from work to do the most worthwhile thing in life, raise a child. Yeah. An Australia where those we welcome to our shores are all determined to embrace our values, to work hard, to contribute to this nation, to become Australian. An Australia where we have confidence in our nation's future. An Australia where we have hope and optimism. This isn't the Australia we know today. But we have known it, and we can know it again. Yeah. We can restore our standard of living, and we can protect our way of life. Now, that starts by fighting against the assault on aspiration at the heart of Labor's budget. Labor is locking out young Australians from the opportunities afforded to older Australians to build wealth and prosperity and to get ahead. This Prime Minister is one of many Australians who has benefited from these opportunities. Now he's pulling up the ladder of opportunity for the next generation. Not only by whacking higher taxes on housing, but also on their savings, investments and small businesses. When government whacks a tax on something, you get less of it. Less housing, less savings, less investment and less small business for the next generation. Labor's budget isn't intergenerational fairness, it's intergenerational fraud.
Yeah.
Their budget is also an attack on every Australian. Its own budget papers state its tax hikes will reduce the number of houses available for young Australians to buy or to rent. Labor's negative gearing changes will hand over housing investment to multinationals and foreign pension funds. Labor's increase to the capital gains tax will discourage the investment Australia needs to grow. And Labor's small business tax will punish small and family businesses that are already working harder than ever and collapsing at record rates. The Treasurer's higher taxes aren't economic reform. They're an assault on aspiration. They're an attack on the wealth creation that benefits all. They will crush the reward for hard work spirit that underpins our nation's success. And so the Coalition will fight like hell to prevent Labor's toxic taxes from becoming law. But if they do, I commit that a coalition government I lead will repeal them. Now, there's a simple reason why Labor has broken its core election promises. This incompetent government has lost control of its spending. When Labor runs out of its money, it comes after yours. Intergenerational theft isn't caused by older Australians. It's been caused by the Albanese government. Labor's reckless spending will soon see our country with $1 trillion of debt. The only way to get debt down is to throw out this bad government. Now, to know a fairer, freer and better Australia, we also need something that's been missing for too long, and that's honesty.
Here we go.
Honesty about what's holding Australia back and leaving Australians behind. First, mass migration is changing Australia for the worse. the number of people coming in far exceeds the number of houses built. Consequently, the great Australian dream of home ownership is vanishing for old and new Australians alike.
Barnaby by himself.
Across its 2 terms, Labor will have brought in 2 million people. That includes 90,000 more than planned in the next 2 years. By inviting in too many people too quickly,
Ridiculous.
we've also seen some come with the wrong values. People who don't want to join and embrace Australia, but people who want to change Australia to suit them. We saw this with the Bondi tragedy, inspired by radical and violent Islam. Second, prioritising net zero and emissions reduction above all else has seen cheap, always-on power dismissed for expensive, sometimes-on, industrial-scale renewables, mainly sourced from offshore. Power prices have soared, causing households to struggle, businesses to close, and industries to move offshore. Far from a future made in Australia, our future is being made abroad. Australians have been fed the lie that our economy can function on solar, wind and batteries alone. But the truth is, fossil fuels continue to drive our economy and our prosperity. In this budget alone, Labor has $18 billion in new net zero spending. Labor's net zero obsession is driving up inflation and destroying our economy. And that's why net zero must go.
Oh.
Third, all Australians prosper from having access to international markets. But blind faith in globalisation has hollowed out our vital industries and made our country vulnerable. We're too dependent on other countries for critical supplies for jet fuel, diesel and fertiliser. And yet we have an abundance of resources beneath our feet. We could be self-sufficient and reindustrialise in key areas if we stop locking up our resources and turbocharged digging and drilling. Yeah. Fourth, during the pandemic, many Australians were reliant on government. But that crisis fed the mistaken belief that bigger government is the solution to every problem. Anthony Albanese promised that you would be better off under a big Labor government. But big government hasn't led to better government or Australians being better off. Government-led housing programs have seen 30,000 fewer homes built each year. 30,000 fewer each year. Government-led industry policy has seen billions wasted on pie-in-the-sky schemes like green hydrogen. Government-led childcare for all has caused costs to rise by 14%. And government-led energy policy and pushing out gas and coal generation has caused power prices to surge by 40%. Labor's reckless spending has caused inflation to soar. Contrary to Labor's spin, inflation was rising long before the conflict in Iran. Under Labor, interest rates have gone up 15 times. And Australia has experienced the worst collapse in living standards in the developed world. Moreover, under Labor, economic growth is an illusion. Every single dollar of growth has been due to population growth, mostly immigration.
I get that.
Every single dollar. Labor remains committed to the follies of mass migration, net zero, locking up our resources and big government. We need to reject these bad ideas to bring about a fairer, freer and better Australia. Yeah. Now, my life has taken me from the family farm, sheep yards and shearing shed, to small business, to factory floors, to boardrooms, to this parliament. I've seen everyday Aussie men and women who make, build, fix, create, contribute and care. And I've seen big government, big unions and big business who direct, influence accumulate power and seek to control the lives of others. Our nation is at its very best when everyday Aussies are empowered. Yeah. My ambition for this country is to revive the freedom that Australians have lost under Labor. Not a government-directed economy, a free enterprise economy. Not bigger government, but better government.
Smaller government.
Better government that gets the big things right, gets off Australians' backs and puts its faith back in you. To that end, the coalition government under my leadership will axe Labor's toxic taxes, end Labor's mass immigration and scrap Labor's net zero policies. Yeah. When we restore and expand our choices, we can begin to restore our standard of living and protect our way of life. Now, Mr Speaker, to lower inflation, interest rates and the cost of living, we must reduce government spending. Labor has driven it to a 40-year high outside of the pandemic. We will work with the government to make its National Disability Insurance Scheme sustainable. Yet Labor lacks any real resolve to rein in its reckless ways. And unlike Labor, the coalition will get spending under control and save billions. We will abolish Labor's climate bureaucracy, its net zero agency, its power lines to nowhere, and its tax on the family car and ute. Yeah. We will end tax breaks for electric vehicles, which are overwhelmingly going to high-income Australians. We'll terminate Labor's corporate welfare, like sending money to foreign tech companies that don't deliver. We'll scrap Labor's housing bureaucracy, the ineffective Housing Australia Future Fund and its build-to-rent tax breaks for multinationals.
It's very vanilla so far.
We'll remove Labor's handouts for non-citizens. Many Australians would be surprised to learn that non-citizens are eligible for welfare in this country. We've already announced that the first home buyer 5% deposit scheme will be reserved for Australian citizens only. Yeah. That's because Labor has allowed some 50,000 non-citizens to access this scheme. Moreover, this government is funding welfare for non-citizens as soon as they arrive on our soil. Yet it has cut the private health insurance rebate for Australians over 65 and slashed $600 million for our veterans. Labor puts Australians second, whereas the coalition will always put Australians first. Yeah. Tonight, I announced that a coalition government will reserve the NDIS and 17 different welfare programs, including JobSeeker, Youth Allowance and the Family Tax Benefit, for Australian citizens only, and save taxpayers billions. Yeah. My message is this: if you commit to Australia, Australia will commit to you.
He's not going
After
far
all,
enough.
The taxes paid by hard-working Australians should support Australians.
Not going.
Australians know that revenue from booming iron ore, gas and coal prices go a long way. For instance, revenues can help to build more houses and stronger communities, as well as the long-term infrastructure in cities and regions that we need, like the Inland Rail that's been axed by Labor. Revenues can help pay down debt too. Since Labor came to office, they've received almost $500 billion in commodity revenue upgrades, mostly driven by higher resource prices. This year alone, iron ore prices have averaged more than $100 US, but this budget assumes they return just $60 a tonne. Instead of paying down debt and building our nation, Labor has squandered resource profits with its self-indulgent spending. In contrast, the coalition will not neglect our responsibility to our children and grandchildren. Where resource tax revenues are higher than forecast, we will bank 80 cents in every dollar into a future generation fund. Yeah. This fund will help to pay down Labor's $1 trillion of debt. Yeah. It will help to invest in nation-building infrastructure. 25% of funding will be for our regions that have been neglected by Labor. Yeah. Regions that are home to the natural resources we all benefit from. Mr. Speaker, in my career I've worked across agriculture, energy, resources and infrastructure sectors. I've helped small and large businesses to grow. I know what makes an economy tick and what Australia needs to grow and to thrive. Government doesn't grow the economy, private enterprise does. Yeah. Tonight, I begin to outline how the Coalition will restore Australian prosperity. It starts with driving investment. Investment lifts the economy's speed limit. It drives up jobs, real wages and real income. And it strengthens the budget to pay for the safety net and to pay down debt. Investment is a vote of confidence in our country with compounding benefits. For example, when a builder invests in a ute, he can do more jobs, take on a new apprentice, grow his business and service more of his community. To lift confidence in our country and encourage business investment, tonight I announce an important down payment, the first of many. We will allow any business with a turnover of less than $10 million to immediately deduct assets of up to $50,000 on a permanent basis. Yeah. To boost investment, we also need to free the government's chains. Laws are too complex and abstract. A coalition government will rewrite and simplify the legislative rulebook, including the Corporations Act, Tax Act, Competition Act, National Construction Code and Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. Yeah. Take the Construction Code as one example. Labor has expanded it to more than 2,000 pages. The code's thousands of rules add tens of thousands of dollars to new housing bills. We want the code to be closer to 200 pages. And we will go further. Regulatory bodies created by government set rules and enforce laws, and that's important. But under Labor, these regulators have become bigger, more powerful and overbearing. They're regulating for regulation's sake. They need to get out of the way. Yeah. A coalition government will impose new responsibilities on regulators by law. We'll require regulators to act in a way that encourages competition, nurtures investment, increases productivity, boosts wages and grows the economy. The Coalition will also abolish Labor's great big carbon tax, the so-called safeguard mechanism. Yeah. This tax jacks up the price on essential building materials like steel, cement and glass, driving up the cost of a new home. That's right. It also undermines investment in key industries and hastens them going offshore. Indeed, we'll abolish Labor's crippling net zero carbon taxes wherever we find them, on mining, manufacturing, electricity, vehicles and imports. Now, just as I want more investment in Australia, I want Australians to keep more of their income. If you're feeling poorer under this government, it's because you Labor is stealing from you with inflation. The Treasurer says inflation will reach 5% next month. People see Labor's inflation steal from them in higher grocery prices, power bills, mortgage repayments and other cost of living expenses. But Labor is stealing from Australians in another way, year after year, without new laws, without an election, and without you even noticing until you look at your bank account. When your wages rise just to keep up with inflation, you're no better off. But you pay higher taxes as though you are better off. More of your income goes into a higher tax bracket. This is bracket creep.
Yes,
and it's why
get passionate about it.
The higher Labor's inflation goes and the longer it lasts, the more the government takes from you.
Even my dog's getting restless with it.
This is a stealth raid on Australians working hard to get ahead. Labor's promising that your real wages will finally go up. But Labor's plan is to tax away all of workers' real wage gains. Living standards go nowhere. A typical worker on $70,000 a year will see their entire real wage gains taxed away. The worst thing about this tax is that it keeps going up and keeps taking more each year forever. Under a coalition government I lead, this will end. Yeah. Tonight, I announce our tax-back guarantee. From 2028-29, we will index the bottom two income tax thresholds to inflation. Yeah. That will fully protect 85% of income earners with relief of around $2.50 in year one for a typical worker, growing to more than $1,000 a year in year four. From 2031-32, we will index the top two tax thresholds as well. That will fully protect all income earners from inflation. Yeah. This is generational tax reform. Yeah. It's fair, it's simple, and it's honest. It will back Australians to work hard, take risks, invest in their future, and invest in our country's future. It will force government to respect your money. Any government that wants to tax Australians more should have the courage to front up and take that tax increase to an election. Yeah. Under Labor, Australians work harder, pay more and fall behind. Under the Coalition, Australians will be rewarded, keep more and get ahead. Yeah. From my first day as opposition leader, I said I wanted to re-establish home ownership as the centrepiece of the Australian dream. My goal is more houses for Australians and a fairer go for young Australians. A coalition government will get stalled housing projects moving again. We will invest $5 billion in supporting infrastructure like roads, water, power and sewerage. Yeah. With this support, we will unlock 400,000 new homes for Australians. As I said, we will cut red tape, which will take up to $70,000 off the cost of a new home. But the biggest problem with access to housing is that under Labor, immigration numbers are too high. With Labor having opened the migration floodgates, the dream of home ownership has become a nightmare for so many Australians. Since Labor was elected, it has brought in a record 1.4 million people, about the population of Adelaide. That number accounts for 80% of our population over the same period, and that's why there's a shortfall of homes for about 400,000 people. Australians are deeply concerned about the scale and pace of immigration, housing, infrastructure and services. And that includes migrants themselves, who have become Australians. Tonight, I announce a far-reaching and unprecedented housing policy. It's also an immigration policy that puts Australians first. Yeah. A coalition will cap immigration numbers based on the number of homes constructed each year. Yeah. Never again will a government be able to bring in more people than our housing can support. That's our commitment. That's our commitment. I also stress this point. Given the magnitude of people coming in under Labor, immigration will need to be significantly below our cap in the first few years of a coalition government. We must allow the housing market to catch up. Only closer to the election can we provide a precise immigration number. It would be rash to do so now because Labor always exceeds its immigration targets, and it will do so again.
Oh, some passion at last.
By the next election, the situation could be even worse than it is today.
Some passion.
But this much I promise. The coalition will deliver one of the biggest cuts to immigration in the history of this country. Our immigration cut will complement our plan to lift immigration standards. We will make the existing Australian values statement an enforceable visa condition. We'll make it an obligation, not an option, for permanent visa holders to learn English. We'll enhance screening to stop radicals from entering our borders. We'll curtail frivolous protection claims by restoring temporary protection visas and establishing a list of safe countries deemed free from persecution. And we will process and deport 70,000 overstayers who have no legal right to stay. Those who criticise the law being enforced must explain why their sympathies lie with illegal overstayers instead of with migrants and Australians who abide by the law. In a dangerous world of coercion, crises and conflict, we need to address threats and risks comprehensively and get serious about our self-reliance. Tonight, I announced that a coalition government will develop a national security strategy and appoint a dedicated national security advisor. Central to that strategy will be defence. Unlike Labor, with its accounting trickery, the coalition will commit to spending at least 3% of GDP on defence. That is what is needed to bolster our ranks of warfighters in this country, to harden our bases, to deliver AUKUS, to build offensive and defensive drones and missiles at speed and scale in an age where such weapons are essential to deter a larger adversary. Energy security will also be a priority in this new strategy. While renewables have a role in our energy mix, especially rooftop solar and home batteries, they aren't a rapid replacement for fossil fuels. Fossil fuels still deliver most of our energy needs. Australia isn't undergoing a rapid, pain-free energy transition as Labor pretends. Australia's energy security requires energy abundance. That's the coalition's goal. So tonight I announced that a coalition government will work with coal-fired power plant owners to keep them running as long and as hard as possible to get electricity prices down. On fuel, the coalition has said we will double our minimum reserves of petrol, diesel and jet fuel to put our total reserves within reach of 90 days. We will also invest $800 million for new fuel storage to give us 1 billion litres of additional capacity. To incentivise more refining, we'll make the fuel security services payment available to companies who can build new refineries. This includes refining of non-conventional fuels, like biofuels and coal to liquids. Ultimately, we want decades of fuel reserves and much more energy. We can achieve that by getting Australian resources out of the ground. More Australian gas working hard for Australians. More Australian oil working hard for Australians. To dig and drill, the coalition will remove obstacles. As I said earlier, we will abolish Labor's hidden carbon taxes, like the safeguard mechanism. And we will rewrite Labor's anti-development environmental laws to speed up approvals. We're also going to unlock critical gas and oil projects. We will create, under law, national strategic priority projects. 2 nation-building projects will be immediately designated by a coalition government. The Browse Basin offshore gas field in Western Australia and the Taroom oil field in Queensland. Yeah. The Commonwealth will get out of the way so the states can get projects going. The Coalition will also put an end to the green energy rent-seeking. We will back any technologies that can deliver affordable and reliable energy in this country. That includes coal, gas, hydro, batteries and renewables in the right places. And it will include nuclear power too. We will lift the ban. Yeah. To Australians watching tonight, I know you're struggling on many fronts. I know you're apprehensive about yours and your children's future. I know you're worried about the state of our cherished country. But decline isn't inevitable. Damage isn't irreparable. Difficulty isn't insurmountable. I'm not under any misapprehension. There's much work the Coalition must do to win your confidence. But with the policies I've announced tonight and the vision I've outlined, I hope you can begin to believe again. Believe in our promise of better government. Believe in the prospect of a fairer, freer and better Australia. That Australia is worth fighting for, now more than ever. And the fight starts tonight. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I know there's got a record, but my God. Okay.
Had friends that had.
Oh God, I've lost it. Come on. Sorry, guys. What are we doing here? I've hit the wrong button, I think.
Where he'll be catching up with some of Richo's friends ahead of that service at 11 a.m. Kieran, there is a long list of attendees today.
Sorry, guys. I'll just refresh that page and get that back. No, there was a lot of good policy in there. Some of it was, some people will hate it, some people love it. Oh God, where do you begin? Tonight was supposed to be, and when I was speaking to everyone before at the start of this about Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader in England. She's passionate, she's articulate, she doesn't mind winding up her ALP opponents. She just whipped them a new one yesterday. Just ripped them. Angus Taylor there, I don't know, did his people not see the polls come out today?
It's One Nation.
I think there was a lot there to build on. I mean, it's a sketch, as it were. A lot of details still missing. I think you're absolutely right. The failure to nominate.
Let's listen to what Paul's got to say.
Low the immigration intake will be. Well, he got horse laughed in Parliament from Labor weakness. Also, I think maybe a bridge too far to say that permanent residents will be denied 18 different welfare projects, even though they could be taxpayers. I'm not sure. I think that might be seen as a bit cruel as well. But basically, let's give him the credit. The biggest thing he did was, as you said, pledge tax indexation of the tax rates. That is not just a permanent tax cut, well, a return of tax to...
Can't listen to Bolt anymore. There is definitely good policy. What he's talking about with the bracket creep, that's good policy. Didn't go hard enough or far enough with immigration. That's what people's looking for. There's two things that he should have gone for the jugular tonight on. That is the honesty of Albo's government, number one. The fact that they will lie to the Australian populace, the Australian electorate's face. They don't care about honesty. They don't care about integrity. Didn't go for that at all. There was barely any mention of the lies they've broken. Sorry, the promises they've broken. I would have gone straight there and straight to immigration and then built from there. But there had to be some passion. I mean, we are, and Bevan Bolt, everyone accuses us boomers of, not worrying about it. Bolt is a classic example of that boomer. We'll come back to him in a minute. But that was a passionless. But the Liberal Party's place in history was on the line tonight. Angus Taylor had to come out and grab the attention. He had to go for the jugular. Let's see what they're saying now of the ALP. This guy, Greenberg, I think it is.
I still think that the coalition is so disparate with One Nation and then Teals on the other side, really dragging it apart. And so from that point of view, I think this was a pretty good effort. A couple of things about it. I just wondered about the passion.
There we go.
And I know he's a passionate man. I know he's got it, but he's
what passion?
I just wonder if he should have looked down the barrel of the camera and really delivered some of his big moments straight to you without the notes. I think that Bob Keating would have done that.
Spot on.
I'm pretty certain that Bob Hawke would have done that. John Howard would have definitely done that. And I just think that's something that he's got to have the confidence to do as a leader, to be able to talk directly to you.
Yep.
Okay. But if we go then down to it, the indexing of those tax scales, well, as Andrew says, it puts discipline on any government to be able to get its own spending into order. It just can't rely, as this government has done. We'll show you in a little while a chart that I did on budget night showing just how much money the government has hoovered in out of people's back pockets since it's been in power. In fact, its tax take from ordinary taxpayers has risen more
this guy's speaking with more passion.
Time.
I mean, what was it from Angus Taylor?
6% per year, which is twice the rate of inflation or more. Now, the reality is that they're now spending that money in other ways.
Greenwood.
So this is where it really becomes important. But it's where he gets the savings from to afford that level, because it's 22.5 over the next 4 years. And this is the reason why they dumped it before the last election. So the point is now, where do they get the money from? Where do the savings come from? I think this is really important to recognise. So this is the bracket creep that we put up on budget night to show you. So back in 22-23, the first Albanese government, the government was getting from PAYG taxpayers $260 billion. In this budget handed down this week, $315 billion. So an increase, $55 billion, a 21% increase, 6.6% per year. So they're getting lots and lots of money in, but they're spending more. And that's the reason why you've got inflation. That's the reason why you've got higher interest rates. That's the argument that Angus Taylor can prosecute.
Look, I think one really good thing about tonight, Andrew, is that, under the former opposition leader, Susan Lee, and that was just 3 months ago, really, that she was opposition leader, she couldn't have got up and delivered a speech like this because all of their policies were under review. Angus Taylor, he knows what he stands for. He can at least deliver a speech like that.
It was a horrible speech.
That is at least a return. But I agree with you, Ross. I think there should have been more strength and more passion in the delivery. This is what politics is. It's bringing the people with you, not just reading a speech.
The nation needs a leader, right?
Exactly.
It needs a leader.
Andrew, on housing, that pledge to link migration with housing completions, I mean, that's pretty smart because it really ties that immigration issue directly to housing supply.
I thought that was smart.
Oh, look, I think that's absolutely correct.
Enough. I don't want to hear more of Bolt. What Ross Greenwood just said then was spot on. There was Angus Taylor. He will lose his seat at the next election. The Liberals will get wiped out if they're not careful. They're polling at 16% today. ALP took a hit. The Liberals took a hit. One Nation is just running over the top, which is great. Hallelujah. I've got no problem with that. But I was really interested to see who's in the Liberal Party strategy room. Here was a chance. Everyone's pissed off with the budget pretty much, unless you're a rusted on ALP acolyte. You're pissed off. I dare say a lot of the ALP people are pissed off. There's a lot of ALP voters out there that would have investment properties. Most of the ALP politicians do. Where was the fight? Where was the brimstone? Fire and brimstone to push back against Albo and his decrepit bunch of morons. I mean, this was your chance to get in front of the nation and have a real rip. And more importantly, not just get in front of the nation, but get those clips that the media are going to be putting out there. Kemi Badenoch today, again, I'm just going to keep banging on to her. The reason I saw a lot of what Kemi Badenoch said today is because it was attention worthy. She was all over social media. If you put her in a feed, you'll just get, the algorithm will give you feed after feed. I didn't look at her speech, but she was in my feed all day today because it was attention grabbing. She was ripping into front benches. She had to go at the female front benches about the hairstyle because in England they won't be allowed into the hairdressers, what they're banned from. She had a crack at one of the guys who was going to be challenging Keir Starmer. She had a crack at Keir Starmer. She had a crack at the entire Labor Party. She had a crack at, in fact, the whole parliament. She included her members of her Conservative Party in that crack. She was passionate. She was bold. She came out and went for the jugular, and she's grabbed attention. I reckon Taylor got passionate for 5 seconds when he was getting those jeers from the ALP about immigration. Didn't go far enough on immigration, but there's a lot of good things, but no one will be aware of them tomorrow because it's not going to get covered. Angus Taylor's job's on the line as leader, but more importantly, his party's jobs, his party's existence is on the line. More importantly, this country's future is on the line. I want a leader. I want someone that will go after Albo, that will go after Burke, that will go after Bowen. He didn't go after that. He'd make a good librarian, so he'd make a good treasurer. I'm not too sure he's a good leader. That was just a boring librarian written speech. He would have had his staffers write it, and he's just turning over the pages. You need to be banging tables. The most thing I saw there was him turning the next page, talking to him. And I was listening to his policy. A lot of it was good, but a lot of it was putting me to sleep. You know, if you're looking there for someone to fight for us, is that what Taylor's about? Are you looking for someone to stand up and say, hey, listen, what Albo did this week lacked integrity. This is not what our politics should be about. This is what Kemi Badenoch did in her parliament today. She had a crack at themselves, said, yeah, build trust. How do you build trust? You don't bullshit people. That's how you do it. And you have some passion about the country. Look, I think he's a smart guy, Angus Taylor. I just don't know whether listening to that, everything's on the line and that's what you deliver. I'll be very interested to see what Pauline's got to say, if she's putting that up. But that was average. Sorry. And I'm not talking policy. I'm talking delivery. He had, like Ross Greenwood just said, he had to stare down the barrel at people, at voters like you and me, and deliver. God, I could have shown more passion than that. What the hell was he thinking? What are the Liberals thinking? You watch the difference between when Barnaby or Pauline come out. Now, they can't speak as well. The oratory, who cares really about the oratory? The bloody, what's his name? Angus Taylor says. I mean, you can be a great orator, but you've got to have passion in what you're doing. Trump is not a great orator, but he has passion. What's Bolt talking about now? Let's see.
It's this tribalism, this identity politics, which is a wider issue, but also linked to immigration, but also to national pride, which you didn't mention tonight. Those are the things, this sense that we are being pulled apart into tribes. Now, and one part of that equation is, in fact, the edges are now drenched in blood. It is about radical Islamic terrorism. Yeah, where was that in the speech? But it's also this wider thing about flying three flags, as simple as that. Yep, people are sick of it. And I think mass immigration and the way Labor is handling that has made that fear that we do not recognise our own country, which is the line that Hanson keeps coming out with, that is what's feeding that.
Ross, Angus Taylor spoke that analogy that a couple of us have been using for days now about Labor pulling the ladder up.
Oh, yeah.
actually working against younger Australians. So he's saying that, the budget was against aspiration, that his pitch will be for aspiration. But in question time today, you heard the Prime Minister stand up there and claim that they were for aspiration. So it really seems to be this political battle around aspiration.
He made the big call as well. And I think this is where the aspirational thing comes from. He talked about the Labor government really trying to centralise control and having a big government.
Communist government.
He really made the case tonight to have smaller government. And I think most people who have got a view that Australia should be more self-sufficient would go with that as well. So when he had the package, say, for tradies, the $50,000 instant asset write-off, that was one thing. By saying that he would fight the government and would repeal, in fact, its potential changes to capital gains tax and to the changes to trusts, which he said were really effectively a tax on aspiration. Again, this will resonate with people, I sense, because my point has been in our coverage this week that apart from football and cricket, negative gearing is the national sport. And so to take away that from Australians, even young Australians recognise that is their chance to move up the ladder. And even though, yes, they can borrow to invest in shares, which is highly risky for most people, or indeed to go to commercial property, which most people can't afford, buying an apartment, starting with one, going to two, maybe getting a house, that's the way people climb up that ladder. That's the way Anthony Albanese climbed up the ladder. That's the way most of us climbed up that wealth ladder. Now you say to young people, sorry, you can't do that. I think there would be resentment in the community because of that. So that was smart politics from Angus Taylor tonight.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you both on. And Andrew, in particular you, I came on your show for the first time in 2014, 12 years ago. I've been on your show dozens and dozens.
Okay, don't need to hear much more from Sherry. Get my ugly mug back up there. Where are we? Sorry, guys. So, I don't know. I think had they looked at the polls before they went, we've all seen them. If you haven't seen them, look at the latest poll. I think it's the Roy Morgan poll. One Nation is leading for the first time in its history ahead of both major parties. What's she got to say? Let's see. Oh, no, she's back on by herself. So we'll stop sharing that for a little bit. Yeah, she talked about Trump. So, yeah. One Nation's leading the polls. They're leading for the first time. No one's led the polls outside the Liberals or the LNP and the ALP since World War II. So today's an historic day. That was a massive slap in the face to Albo and his budget. What part of that within the LNP do they not get? Get on the front foot and start fighting for everyday Australians. Bolt's right there. Start fighting against some of the woke issues like the three flags and, the welcome to Australia. Put that on the map. People are over all this shit. We want our country back. I want to be able to go to work and not worry about the politicians. I want a politician that'll stand in front of me and he'll say what he means. This is Pauline and mean what they say. And if they give us a promise, we can be at least 80 to 90% confident they'll follow through with it. And if they're going to backflip, unlike what they've done this week, they would give a legitimate reason as to why they would do it before doing it. What did they say? Our policy has changed. Some ridiculous thing like that to justify lying their teeth out. So he had every bit of ammunition. You couldn't be given more ammunition. Whoever are the strategists behind the Liberal Party, they should be sacked. They've been pathetically bad for an awful long time. And they're polling at 16%. You've got, there's a time for example, in footy or in my sport, basketball, if you're down by 20 points with a quarter to go, you throw caution to the wind. You come out there and you try and do something that will turn the game around. That speech tonight will not turn the polls around. It will not turn the game around. The Liberals should do one of two things. Get out of the way, or knock on Pauline's door tomorrow and say, how can we work together? And realise they're half of the vote that One Nation are. They are now a minor party. You can have all the seats you want in Parliament. You got them a year or 12 months ago before the rise in One Nation. One Nation's risen now. They're going to be the key political party unless something dramatically changes. And do you think anything's going to dramatically change out of that speech? Some nice policy, but it's not going far enough. The passion's not there. It doesn't. Immigration, be bold. Put a 5-year freeze on it. On our policy platform and our Conservative website, we're saying 10 years. He's not saying 5-year freeze. And listen, I don't disagree with it. He's saying, well, immigration's going to keep going. But if you come in here illegally, you're not going to get in welfare. Totally support that. But if you stop the flat for 5 years, they're not getting any welfare anyway, are they? What he talked about is getting 70,000 people here on invalid visas. Good start. But is that all there is here on invalid visas? I keep hearing different things. Anything up to 2 million. What is the real figure? Be bold. Come out. Say, I would have even gone as far as remigration. I'm not against migration, but he didn't raise radical Islam. We've just we're in May. It wasn't that long ago you had the Bondi massacre. It would have been relevant to raise it. What are these politicians scared about? I raise it nearly on every program. Radical Islam. Shit. Bring it up. Talk about it. Tony Burke would have had his smug smile wiped off his face, but they just sat there pretty arrogant, pretty full of hubris. You had the 4 clowns there. You had Miles, Bowen, Elbow, and Burke all staring him down. I'm pretty confident they were sure they didn't get landed a blow. What the ALP, I tell you what they're looking over their shoulder at. It's not at the Liberals. It's at One Nation. Going to be really interesting. I don't know when One Nation are doing their thing. It must be on the Paul Murray show. But I'm not going to hang around here waiting for that for the next 30 minutes. I'm sorry, everybody. I'll watch it and maybe comment on it tomorrow. Great that he's repealing the changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax. That will certainly give a lot of investors hope. I did like how he tied in immigration to housing availability. So if you're going to do that, why wouldn't you right now just 5-year freeze? Because it's going to take us that long to catch up, at least. Probably need more. We don't have enough housing now. How can you keep bringing immigrants in? You better be kicking a bunch of them out. They said he was talking about small government. What departments did he just commit to removing, abolishing? I didn't hear any. And in fact, what I did hear is a 3% commitment of our GDP towards our defence. I actually think that should be a 5% commitment. But where was his review into fraud with NDIS? There was so much there. How about we get rid? Was there anything there about the parliaments being established for Indigenous communities in the different states, even though we voted no to the voice? No talk of that. No talk of Jacinta Nampijinpa Price had a powerful speech in the Senate this week when she talked about a niece that got murdered in those camps. Where was the talk about that? Tell you another thing that he would actually get a bit of support on. How about a royal commission into COVID? I'm not over that. I'd like to know, all right, royal commission into COVID-19 and the way our government's treated us through that. That would be a vote winner. There's so many things you can be putting out, but that's what they put. There were some nice little ideas. Did it go far enough? No. That in my I like the way they, are going to make sure that inflation is tracked to bracket creep. See, we don't get this basically theft out of our pockets. If you don't understand what bracket creep is, do a research. But basically, they're taking more and more money because they're not raising the brackets of tax as our wages raise, which is not great, but they still raise over a period of time. But they're leaving the lowest bracket, for example, on the lowest wages when it should be going up. So we're not all continuously paying an unfair share of tax. I would have loved to see a flat rate of tax, for example. If you're really going to reform the tax system, then reform it. Be bold. Oh, my God. Yeah. Sorry if I sound frustrated, but God, we're two things. It's great. I'm right on the One Nation train. There's a few things I've got concerned. I'll go over that next week. But I tell you what we do need. We do need, and don't underestimate this, One Nation's going to need some smart people that can understand government and how to run a ministry. If they don't get those people in and they get in that first term, I reckon they're a chance at the moment. And they've got people who know can't handle it. It could be a disaster and they'll be gone in one term. We can't afford that. So Barnaby and all those people there, they've got to be very smart. And at some stage, you know, LNP, anyone who's watching this, I'm certainly sending them a copy of this. If you can't get your shit together, really you can't, go on to a real, this would be my suggestion. If you're going to go out of existence, you're better off being a minor party in a government that can help fix Australia than going out of existence entirely. So I'd be knocking on Pauline's door. What you've got the attention of the people. What we've got is we've got people you can vet that can actually run some ministries, that actually can develop policy. How do we get this together so we can form a new political entity that will serve the Australian people? Put yourself, put your careers, put your future behind the national interest of this country. That's where I would be going. That's what I'd be encouraging. Hopefully Tony Abbott can do that. By the time, if he becomes president, if Alexander Downer does, well, look out. I just don't know whether they understand the danger they're in as a political party. You know, that is not going to get them back. Sorry, it won't get them back. It doesn't go far enough in a lot of the key areas. And that was not, we need a warrior. We're not in the normal sort of war, but we have a political party that holds government, that is doing things to tear down this country, to change the whole face of the country, to change, you know, the demographic of the country, the culture of the country. You don't have to assimilate anymore. I mean, Tony Burke, you know, that's where I think Angus Taylor with his values thing is actually a good idea, but go harder. All right, so for example, I said remigration. If you have that values thing, well, what are you going to do with people that don't accept the values that are citizens? Will you remigrate them? Will you deport them? What are you going to do? You can't say we're going to have certain values, but then not enforce it. So there was no real hard-nosed policy, and they're all scared about upsetting the apple cart and doing all this. The apple cart needs to get upset. Oh, that's so frustrating. Now, this country needs One Nation to become prominent, but there's a lot of hurdles for them to get there. But we also need people, smart people that can develop policies, run ministries, and make sure this One Nation government, if it can get up, is efficient, is conservative, and can rein things in and turn things around, and is professional in the way it goes. We can't have disaster after disaster after disaster because you just don't have the right people. I hope they've got that strategy in place to get the right people in the right places. Otherwise, we could be in a bit of trouble. And while I hate politicians with the passion, or most of them, there are definitely people you need, not all of them, you need to form a competent government. I hope they've got that strategy in place. I hope there's people even smart enough in the Liberal Party to go, you know what, we're screwed a bit here. We are screwed. If the polls aren't waking them up, then I don't know what's going to wake them up. But if Farah didn't wake them up, I don't know what's going to wake them up. But anyway, so that's where we are as a country. We're in for some interesting times. Look, I think Angus Taylor's a decent guy. I think he tried to be too much like a statesman. I think he wanted to have fine words and a speak calmly and do all that. Not the time for that. What's his name? Mark Burris, is it? He got on there and he had these fine words and sentiments and all that. So they had a crack at him. It's not time for that. You've got to. He's trying to say we've got to demand better of Albo, and he's like, do you think they're actually going to want to be better? I mean, they're so bad. It's gotten to the point that Albo and his mob are so bad that there's only one conclusion. You know, they're absolute morons, which they're not. They're actually smart, deviously smart, or they have plans to radically change this country for the worst. And I think it's the second one. So in my books, we're in a bit of a war. We're in a political war. It's political warfare, and you got to go in there with that ruthlessness to win it. There was no ruthlessness from Angus Taylor tonight. So if that's the best the Liberal Party can dish up, step to the left, let Pauline and Barnaby come in, maybe join forces. That was disappointing. Would be really interested to see what you've got to say. That was underwhelming for me. So, like I said, some good policies, some good points, but my God, we need a warrior. We need a warrior. And if you want to understand what I'm saying, I'm going to say this one last time. Check up Kemi Badenoch from the Conservatives and the reply speech, or the speech he gave in reply in their parliament from the King's speech. Lots of speeches in there. She was amazing. So anyway, that's it for me tonight. We'll be back next Tuesday night. Did a special one. So from me, here he is down at my feet. So I can get you a look at him. He hasn't been in it much. He's saying enough, Dad. Can you see him? I don't know whether there he is. Yeah, he's saying enough, Dad. I want you off. So from me, from JJ, God bless you. God bless your kids. God bless your grandkids. God bless your pets. God bless that country. And God, we need something special, don't we? Come on, One Nation. One Nation to save the nation. That's where it's going to be. And whether you like One Nation or not, what's your choice? Is it the Liberals, ALP, or One Nation? I know what my choice is. I'm Conservative. I know where we're going. There he goes. He's up on his couch. Off to watch the footy. I'm not really keen on the footy tonight. Geelong and Brisbane again, getting kind of boring. So